Courageous Conviction. This will be another video this week. Doing it independently without Jeff again, unfortunately. Hopefully he's going to do some singles as well. We've been having technical difficulty. He lives in one state, I live in another state. The studio that we have built that does all recording is in another country. And so we're having some issues there, as well as trying to get ourselves to a point where we can do this more regular. And now we're starting to get a little bit of a following. So by the way, subscribe. We need the subscriptions. We want to do this, maybe not for a living, but if this can allow us to work on this daily for at least the time being, and we can get monetized and so forth, and even down the road, be able to do this more so we can do more research, take you on these Book of Mormon tours, member or non-member alike, come with me. You're going to go see the footprints. You're going to go see what you're signing up to see. But while we're there, we're going to take advantage of the tourist attractions that are in those areas too. Right? Remember, we're going to be promoting in northern Peru, Ecuador. We also go into the jungles of Ecuador. Okay, Ecuador is going to have two. It's going to have two tours. Believe it or not, Ecuador. Yeah. In northern Peru too. Believe it or not, there's some cool things there you're going to find out. That comes from migration. Then we're going to do obviously Mesoamerica. We'll have a couple of tours. A couple in Guatemala. One's going to be an expedition with donkeys and guides, and we're going to take off for 7 days in the jungle. We're going to go see some real cool things in the El Mirador, Petén Basin, that area there. And we're going to walk highways and roads that connect city to city. Obviously, you can't see the full cities anymore, but you get an idea of what's still there and some of the pyramids that are still there, high pyramids. Danta's there, one of the highest pyramids that they found so far. Anyway, we'll do that. We're going to do, we got some stuff in the El Salvador, Honduras area that will kind of encompass in with one of our Guatemalan tours. Then we have obviously the Yucatan and Chiapas areas where we'll go down we'll do some things there, right? Then the other tour we'll offer would be Mexico City, Tenochtitlan, Teotihuacan. There's some other areas surrounding Mexico City that I want to take you to, that Joseph talks about, these cultures. Many people don't realize this, that these cultures actually broke off from Moses, one of them in particular, and settled there. The Lord brought them here eventually. It's interesting. There's so much there. So here's what I want to talk about right now. My story is this. When I decided to come back to the church, and I've told in my other video, I talked about when my boys were 7, my ex-wife called me up and said, who's going to baptize these kids? Get your act together, or I find somebody else. And so I got my act together, and I've had my act together since then. My boys are 23 now. And this should be a real challenging time for me. It should be easy for me just to bail and go back to what there was. It was a lot more fun. I don't have to deal with bishops that are just not getting things right now and having a tough time struggling through all this and not sure how to manage or lead their wards. Remember, our bishops, a lot of times, they never had leadership positions in their lives, right? They're learning still. Or maybe some middle management position, but never true leadership positions where they're making executive decisions. And, people's memberships or activity are depending on these bishops. And so we just have to, you're going to have some bad ones in there. Doesn't mean they're not called. Doesn't mean we don't sustain them. That's funny how we sustain even the bad ones. Yeah, we do. Because what we're doing is saying to the Lord, I know you allowed this calling to take place. Right? Now, I heard it recently said, and this surprised me, the person who said this, as prominent as they are in the church, said, though leaders should be called by inspiration, he said about 33% are actually called by inspiration. The other 33% are called by friends. I like working with them. We work good together, but I'm going to call them. The other 33% are because there's just no choice. I'll give you an example. There was a young man I worked with in the stake. He would flake on everything he did. Now, he's not a bad guy. We get along fine, but I knew I couldn't rely on him anything. We built up some programs down there and we gave them to him. He just flopped. He let him drop. He just dropped them. We did 2-3 years to build these programs up, and then in 6 months they were gone from the stake. It was frustrating. My stake president and I had a really, really high confidence level, especially during the lockdowns. His 2 counselors were just on board with the government, and my stake president got it. He got it. He did his research. Others didn't. They just listened to other people, right, in the news, which is a mistake. He did his research, and he's very spiritual. Now, I had the opportunity to study with my stake president for 2 years every Tuesday, from 8 in the morning until 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That was in every Tuesday. We very seldom broke from that. And we did some deep dive research, stuff we're talking about now. It's like the Lord was preparing us for this. We had to change the stake somehow. We wrote a program to train all leadership in the stake. We wrote a program, and we taught this program in the stake for those 2 years in leadership and how to lead in your home and in business and in the gospel, and where there might be some variations. The principles are pretty much the same, but there's more tolerance usually given in the gospel. Yes and no. It should be the same everywhere, right? So we try to teach this. We live the gospel in everything we do. So we studied. Back to my story. Let's go back to my boys. To being 8, I'm going through a whole series of legal issues as a CEO. 2008 wiped us out. They wiped us out big time. And, as an executive, I had a heart attack. I was 45 years old, and my boys found me at 3 o'clock in the morning, dead on the floor of the bedroom. Luckily, my sons, because they were in scouting, by the way, my sons, one of them heard me fall. I called his name as I was falling. I got up 3 o'clock in the morning. I went to the bathroom, washed my face. I was having these chills, these sweats. I was sick to my stomach. I had massive chest pain. I had pain down my arm, pain in my neck, pain in my back. I'm thinking to myself, I think I'm having a heart attack. And I collapsed to the floor. And all I can remember was this darkness coming over me. And in this darkness, I felt a peace I've never felt before in my life. And then I was woken by a finger under my tongue with nitroglycerin to bring my heart back into rhythm and bring it back. I faded again in about 20 minutes. I had another heart attack in about 20 minutes. Another nitroglycerin tablet while we waited over an hour for an ambulance to show up. That's a whole other story. And with socialized medicine, basically, I got to the hospital. Then I was already back in rhythm. They put me in a gurney, put me in the hallway. They said, wait for him to have another heart attack, and then we'll attend to him. That's where the socialized medicine goes. I'm in my underwear. Remember, I'm not active at this point, right? And I'm in my underwear. Actually, I'm just now starting to get active, just coming back to church, right? But I was in my underwear. I wasn't in my garments. I don't believe I was in my garments. I don't remember. Anyway, story short, whether I was or wasn't, I had to, because they took me in my underwear, right? So when I left the hospital, I had to walk out in my underwear. I had nothing. I walk on the street, get a taxi, and I go home. I'm by myself. That's a whole other story. Anyway, the stress, right? So going through all these things, my wife and I decide, we have a restaurant. Let me back up a little. We have this restaurant, and we're dealing with issues. We open a restaurant up in a cattle auction. Didn't know that we were, this is in Costa Rica, right? And I didn't know that we were impeding on the cartel's money laundering through restaurants and through cattle auctions. So we got visited often by cartel with guns pointed to our heads. My poor little wife had a little 380 in her cowboy boot. That's how we lived our lives for a number of years in Costa Rica. That's the true side of Costa Rica that people don't see when they're going down on a tour. One night, we're back active in church, and we're in a little tiny branch. But we're working later and later. The inflation was getting out of hand. Electricity was going outrageous. And working more and more and more and more, and working later and later and later just to pay the government. We had nothing in a day. And one night on New Year's Eve, we were packed, slam packed. But we were going to bed at 3, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning on Saturday, and then having to be at church at 8 or 9 in the morning. We're falling asleep in sacrament meeting. I'm snoring in sacrament meeting, right? Not looking good. So I'm standing there. We had a bar in this restaurant. I had partners with it too, right? And remember, I started building this when I wasn't active, and we built this really cool bar, and I just didn't want to abandon it. I thought, well, make it a soda bar. But then in that area, if you don't have a bar, you're not going to get people in. So I justified, I rationalized, and we could debate that whether it's good or bad. I ended up being bad. Long, short, this was the challenge of faith I had to apply. Not just overcoming and tapping into atonement. Now I was going to be tested on my faith. We're barely surviving. My wife and I are eating, we're going to end up eating just rice and eggs for weeks because it's all like we could afford. We were at the time the the mission leaders. And we had 4 missionaries, a set of sisters and a set of elders. I had a truck, and there was an extended cab, so we could take them everywhere. And that really helped the missionary program a lot. So we decided, I just sitting there, and I'm at the bar, and my wife and I said, we're never going to serve liquor. Okay, we're never going to serve the liquor. We'll have a bartender, and they take your liquor. We'll do the cash register. We'll do soda, stuff like that, and we'll just manage everybody, right? Long short, my wife and I are serving liquor on New Year's Eve. We're just slammed. We're packed. Great. We needed the money. We really needed the money. We had to pay some bills. And I grab a beer, or a couple beers, and I give them, I grab some drinks, I guess I'll say, and I give them to this couple. When I looked at the couple, the guy and the girl, I knew his wife, I knew her husband, and I knew what they were doing together. And I knew where they were going after that. And I looked over at my wife, running just at the register, running like crazy, and I looked at her, and I thought, we won't make church again this weekend because of this. This is what the Lord wants us to do. I'm only aiding and abetting Satan. I mean, I'm not doing anything myself, but by aiding it along, I'm aiding Satan's plan. The same thing applies to everything today, that we aid along, we aid Satan's plan. And I looked at my wife, I pulled her outside, and I said, go tell the DJ to announce that we are closed for business as of right now. She said, what? Are you crazy? I said, we're going to take Mathews' promise. And if the Lord recognizes even the lilies of the field, he'll know what we need. And we're going to serve him with everything we've got, even though we have nothing, and we're going to have even less. We're going to serve him in our calling. It was my calling, but she supported me because of the sister. She didn't be there. She was Young Women's President at the time, I believe. Anyway, we did. We announced it. We closed it. People weren't happy. Employees were not happy at all. I paid them up to date, just said sorry, but we can't keep it going on like this. I can't keep going in business just to pay the government. And I'm not going to help Satan usher in his plan. We shut down the business. We rented out the cattle auction, so it gave us a little bit to just pay the basic bills. We had nothing else, right? And that's how we started our life. And we dedicated ourselves to the work of the Lord. And I watched us climb out and go through some very serious trials. As an executive, I was under a lot of BS, the legal issues, right? A lot of lawsuits, civil lawsuits, but still ugly civil lawsuits, just trying to take everything that we might have had left. I gave up everything. I turned to my investors and I said, if you guys really think this way, take everything I have. Take my homes, take my properties, take everything else, take everything that's in the company, and we put it into a trust for them. So they could all go fight over it, and they did, because that was just their nature, to fight and argue. And they still to this day, it's been years now, have never got it resolved. And most of them have lost everything because they were too greedy. They want everything, right? So be careful of that. Point the finger at this, but it's not necessarily that person's fault. It's because of the greed and the pride of others. We went through that. And by the same token, not having much at all, we save enough money up to buy lunch for the missionaries. And we go out to the missionaries 3 times a week. And I'm not saying this about myself on the back. This is just what we did. We were provided for. And what little we had, we paid our tithing. And we were provided for. And things worked out. Things worked out. It's been difficult the whole last, 13, 14 years. It's been very, very difficult. But things are working out. Now we're home, back in the States. It's been a transition. My home was rented out all this time. So as you can imagine, a home being rented out for 20 years to renters with very little maintenance on it, a lot of work needs to be done. Our heat is out. We're in winter. Our fireplace wasn't installed right, the stove that was put in, so it doesn't work either. I'm running a heater, and it finally burned up the old wires in our home because this home was built by my great-grandfather. My grandfather remodeled it back in the 60s and 70s. And since then, I've spent our wiring. Burns up the wiring, almost catch our home on fire the other night, so we don't have electricity either in half the house. No heat, and the pump went out, and the well went dry. No water, no running water. I have to go in every day and buy 20 gallons of water, and we come home and we live on 20 gallons of water a day. It's $10 to buy 20 gallons of water. That's what we're living with right now in starting up our 2 companies, in getting this channel up and running, as well as maintaining our company, a crypto company, in Ecuador. that's been suffering because his economy has been down. Crypto was down until recently. Things started looking positive again. Got a lot of money invested there. Anyway, it's been a struggle, but it doesn't mean my faith has wavered. Now, has there been times I've asked Heavenly Father, why do I got to keep going through this? It's been all these years. Haven't I shown that my heart is here, is correct? I guess I haven't. Maybe I think I have. But then I had to think about all the time Satan calls me to look back in these tough times. I think when I get to a point that I'm not looking back anymore, I'm not looking for the easy way out, then I'll feel like I've graduated to a different level. I've lived the standard. But until then, Father's going to give me these challenges, and I got to learn to deal with them. And that's how we started. And our faith will never change in that. I have a similar story of that in tithing with my ex-wife, and her faith today. We talk about that. We just recently at a family gathering, we were talking about it. And I've never had, even when I was not active, I paid tithing because I know the Lord lives. I've never doubted that. I tried to. When I joined the whole LGBT community and I was supporting them and hanging out with them all the time. Remember, my best friend was gay. I tried to abandon all of it and to deny it all. You just can't. Once you see the truth, you can't. And I thank my mission for that, by the way. Any young men listening to this and want to think about a mission, serve a mission. Young women, too, serve it. Serve for the right purpose. Prepare yourself and go to the mission for the right reasons to serve other people and to serve your Lord. And you will build a foundation that will put roots to help you withstand the strong winds of storm that are coming. Courageous Conviction, I'm out. See you in the next one.